in a way, it was a kind of a magical moment as compared to, say, maybe not my first ascent of longs when I was in my early teens, but many of the subsequent ones. When you finally get up there, even though it's 6:15 in the evening, you know, it's kind of late, there was a little feeling of unreality, and at that hour today, an incredible beauty. The shadows of Everest and Lhotse and Nuptse were off to the east there, and the color of the mountains was this golden, yellow-orange of a sunset, and you're not oblivious to the fact that you're standing on the highest point of the earth, having just succeeded in muddling your way up an unknown ridge. There's also that anxiety of realizing that it's going to be dark pretty soon and you've got to get down the other side. The question of how I think about Everest now is that, to tell you the truth, you know, it's like Willie said right after, he said, when you climbed Everest, it's like an albatross hanging around your neck. There's no getting away from it. And that is certainly so, but it's okay. It took me until I was about 50 to come to peace with that. I sort of, Everest, in those early years afterwards, I tried to keep over here out of the way of my professional career. And I go out and give talks and stuff some, but it was like there were these two different lives. And then at a certain point, I guess, I just became apparent, you know, it's all one piece and it didn't matter anymore. And beyond that, what Everest had something to do with defining who I am but only a piece of it. But it's all part of a piece. So in that sense, it's okay. And I'm very sanguine about it now, and I'm not unproud of what happened, but it's not something I feel all that. I mean, it was just a climb. Well, looking back from the perspective of the experience of others, when we first started looking at it and discussing possible ways up, and I was advocating this gully, it was referred to by the rest of my buddies on the team as Hornbein's avalanche trap. And I would sort of acknowledge if it snowed a lot, maybe an avalanche could come down it, but I kind of poo-pooed it. Denial's great. And a few days before we actually got into it and put our camp partway up it, we were hit by this tremendous windstorm. Well, the windstorm really just scoured the mountain, and it may well have cleaned out the gully too, because the conditions a few days later when we actually got into it were really pretty good. So the fact that we thought we were probably going to have been blasted off the mountain with all of our hopes gone may well have turned into a real gift to have made the route far more amenable to a climb than it has been for others on occasion since. I mean, it's kind of fun to think of that little bit of geographic immortality, and that Hornbein's avalanche trap then sort of evolved to Hornbein's couloir, and now it's sort of the Hornbein couloir. And I can remember going into a climbing store in Copenhagen some years ago when I was there, and I wanted to pick up a book, which I got, and handed the young man at the counter my credit card, and he looked at my name and he said, "Were you named after the couloir?" And I was tempted to say, no, that was my dad, but I didn't, and explained it all to him. But no, that's kind of fun looking back. Now the question of where one sees this 40 years later, when we were there climbing, I mean, we were just there to climb and to have fun, and have an adventure. Every now and then I will get around, about every 10 years or so, to rereading my book. And for the first years, I couldn't read it without seeing all the ways I would have written it a little differently. but after a while that sort of faded, and now when I read the latter parts of it, I sort of get sweaty palms, and it's hard to, it's almost like another Tom Hornbein did that. And in some ways it feels, though intellectually I identify with it, it feels like a different person then than the person now.